Take the overwhelmed brain at least once a day for a healthy dose of self-empowerment and personal evolution. Are you annoyed by affirmations? When someone walks up to you and tells you to think positively, do you rip up those unpaid speeding tickets with the confidence and surety of Captain Smith of the Titanic?
Think positively. We'll never hit an iceberg.
If affirmations feel like lies and positive thinking feels like denial, then get ready to start creating the life you've always wanted now. This is Paul Poliani, host of The Overwhelmed Brain, the personal growth show for the critical thinker. On every episode, we'll talk about practical, down-to-earth steps to help you improve your mood and keep you sane in this powerful journey we call life. I want to help you bridge the gap between your emotions and reason, causing you to discover why you do the things you do and what you can do to reach higher levels of happiness and lower levels of stress and overwhelm. And if you're here to learn more common sense tips for improving your life, you're in the wrong place. This is the direct path to uncommon sense, and that's why it's going to help you learn, heal, grow, and evolve. Today's quote is by Carl Jung, and it's this: "Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. It is far better to take things as they come along with patience and equanimity." So in my opinion, Carl Jung had a lot of things right, and this is one of them. One thing I've learned is that happiness is not something that we can grasp, so to speak. If you make your pursuit a pursuit of happiness, one where you can attain happiness, you're going to be disappointed more often than not. I'm not saying it's completely unattainable, and, the way you describe or define happiness is going to be unique to you. So when I talk about happiness, I'm talking about the moments that you feel glee, the moments you feel joyful and I was going to say happy, but there's more words to happy, like laughing. When you are laughing, you feel happy a lot of the times. And when you have this brightness about you, when you have this positivity about you, when you feel good, when you're in a situation that doesn't cause you stress. There's the first description that I said that puts it in the perspective of something that you don't want. A lot of us want happiness. A lot of us want to attain a happy feeling, or at least something as close to it as possible. And so we have different ways to attain that. We can go forward towards things that make us happy. We can go away from things that don't make us happy or make us unhappy. Or you could say, if this person wasn't in my life, I'd be happier. If I didn't have this job, I'd be happier. If I made better choices, I'd be happier. And then we start thinking about the regrets that we have in our life. And then we start thinking about what we could have done differently, what decisions we could have made. And then we have all these thoughts that prevent us from being happy in the moment. It's funny, I read a quote on Facebook the other day, and someone said something like, "We can control our thoughts, and what you think about, you create in your life." It was something like that. And at first I was like, oh, that's nice. And then I said, wait, I don't agree with that. And I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, what do you think of this quote? "We can control our thoughts." And she goes, oh yeah, that's true, we can. And I was like, but sometimes thoughts come out of nowhere. You're sitting there, you're working on something and everything's fine, and all of a sudden this person's face comes in your mind and you're like, oh, that jerk. Or you're reminded of something in a certain situation and you think, oh, that just makes me angry. And you go, I didn't want that thought. I didn't want to have that thought. How could I have controlled that? It just came out of nowhere. So I said, and so I told her this, and I said, there are times when you're just sitting there and a thought comes to mind. Now, why that happens is because you hear something, you see something, or you even feel something that is related to something about that thought. This is typically what happens. For example, I remember when I was working in the hospital and I saw a Coke can sitting on the shelf. This is when the hospital was still being built. And it was just an empty can, and I immediately thought of a cheeseburger. I was like, why did I think of a cheeseburger? That's weird. And then I remembered, I used to drink, when I drank soda, I would love a cheeseburger and a Coke. So at that point, I realized how strong associations are and how everything we see, hear, and feel, and taste, and smell, everything that's associated with our senses reminds us of something else. So all of a sudden you'll have a song pop in your head and you'll be like, oh, that reminds me of a time. And then you'll go back to that time. And then suddenly you have a feeling, you have an emotion. When I saw that can of soda, I was like, oh, I could really use a cheeseburger right now. But it was funny because I really wasn't hungry and I wasn't in the mood for a cheeseburger until I saw it. So this tells me that we have a lot of stimuli in our environment that remind us of things all the time. So when you hear the number, you have 60,000 plus thoughts a day, it's probably because you have more than that in stimuli throughout the day. And every piece of stimuli is associated with something that you learned or memorized sometime in the past. So where I'm going with this is that the quote I saw about you control your thoughts, I didn't agree with. And I was thinking, wow, are there quotes out there that I really don't agree with? Should I come up with an anti-quote segment that I read a quote and then I go, I don't agree with this quote and this is why? Well, this is one of those quotes that I don't agree with. And when I explained to my girlfriend why I didn't agree with it, she was like, oh, I see what you mean. And then she told me why she thought it was a true statement. She said, yeah, but you can have a thought and then choose to have another thought instead of that one. And I said, I agree with that. Yes. And I said, but that's more of what you focus on. And she goes, yes, exactly. Yes. She goes, it's all in the language. And I was like, yes, you're right. And then she got on a soapbox and said, you know what? Language is what, screws us over every time. Because there are a lot of people out there teaching good things, but they're using language in a way that doesn't feel very good or doesn't resonate with some people, like what you just said. And she's talking about me. I said, I agree. She goes, you took it literally. You control your thoughts. And I was like, well, there are people like me that are going to take it that way. I think a lot of people like me are going to take it that way. And then they're going to feel bad because they think that they're supposed to be able to control their thoughts because they saw a quote from someone, maybe someone important. You can control your thoughts. And I said, that's BS. You can't control every thought. Sometimes thoughts just happen because you are stimulated by something. There's stimuli that associates the neurons inside your brain and body that bring up other thoughts. So you didn't really have too much control over it. But I said you can control your focus to a certain extent. So when something does come into your mind, you can go, I'm going to choose not to focus on that. Now, it might be hard. It might be something that you are dealing with and you just can't stop thinking about it, but you can do it. I know you can do it. If you think I'm wrong, walk across a busy intersection and tell me if you're thinking about anything else but getting hit. Now, don't do it on a regular well, actually, don't do this at all, but just do this in your head. If you imagine you're crossing the street with very fast cars, I am going to tell you that your only focus is to stay alive, to cross the street, to make it across the street, and that you will not be thinking about this other thing that you think you can't stop focusing on. And you can do this with a lot of things in your life. You can focus on other things. Just don't make them death-defying things like that, but you get the idea. So where I'm going with this quote by Carl Jung, which is, even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. It is far better to take things as they come along with patience and equanimity, or equanimity. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. The idea behind that quote to me is that instead of focusing on, I want to be happy, I want you to focus on what in your life makes you unhappy. What in your life causes you to feel bad? Now, I know we don't want to keep our focus there, but just for the moment, think about what in my life is one of those things that if I didn't have it, I would be happier. And whatever you come up with, whether it's a person or a thing or a situation that you're in, whatever it is, ask yourself, why am I still in this situation? Why do I still have this person in my life? Why do I still have this thing in my life? Now, you may have some great explanations of why, or excuses of why that person, situation, or thing is in your life, but just ponder why. Now, there's something in psychology called secondary gain. And what that means, if you don't know, is that there's a benefit to having something that doesn't benefit you. Or to put it better, having this challenge or situation benefits you in some way. Even though it's causing you harm or bad feelings, there's some sort of benefit you get from it. And what I mean by that is, for example, think of a married couple where one of them is depressed all the time, and the other one's like, what can I do to help? What do you need? Here, let me make you breakfast. Here, let me drive you to wherever. Let me do this for you. Let me do that for you. The other person really doesn't want to be depressed, but they may stay depressed not knowing that they are actually gaining what they consider love and attention by being depressed. So this is something important to think about in your own life. Let's just say you can ask yourself the question, if I didn't have it, if I didn't have this in my life, what would I lose? What's a benefit that I would lose? It's kind of an odd way to look at it, right? What is something good that I would lose by not having this in my life? For example, your great-grandmother passed down a painting through the generations, and it's hanging in your house, and you can't stand it. But you keep it up because it's sentimental, and it's your great-grandmother, and you want to keep it in the family, but every time you look at it, you feel bad. But you keep it there. What are you gaining by keeping it there? What is the benefit of having it there? You may not have any. It may just be out of guilt that you keep it up. And is that productive? Is that healthy for you? But what if every time your mom comes over and she sees the painting and she's like, oh, I just love that painting. I'm so glad that you have it in your house and that I can see it every time I come over. And you feel good making your mom feel good. So even though it's a problem in your life, the secondary gain is that your mom likes it, so it makes you feel good. So you weigh the consequences going, you know what? This makes my mom feel good, so I'm going to keep it. It's not along the same lines as someone who's depressed and the other person who's giving him or her all the attention that they would want or need. But it gives you an idea of how to see it on a smaller scale. What is the secondary gain? What is the benefit of having or feeling this way or having this person in my life? And especially, is that benefit the reason I don't want to get rid of it? Now, when you come up with a benefit, does the benefit outweigh the bad feelings? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. For example, when I was married, a lot of my marriage was hard. It was very hard because I was very judgmental towards my wife, as I've mentioned on the show many times, and it was hard for her, and it caused her to get into a depression because she wasn't sure what to do. She didn't feel safe around me, but she loved me. So she was kind of stuck in this situation where she's now married to someone that she loves, but this person that she loves doesn't make her feel safe. And since I'm not doing things that make her feel safe around me, she feels like she's stuck. She had some benefit of having me in there, but mostly she was just felt defeated. And then you look at it from my perspective, and I'm thinking that she's doing things wrong, and I'm judging her for the wrong things that she's doing. But my gain is, hey, everything else is great, not knowing that what I'm doing is trickling into everything else, but I'm thinking everything else is great. So I'm going to continue this bad relationship, this relationship that feels bad a lot of the time, simply because there's other things to gain from it. But look at the overall picture. Look at the end result and ask yourself this question. If I continue along this path, what will it look like in 1 year? What will it look like in 5 years, 10 years? If I continue along this path, are things going to get progressively better or worse? Or are they going to stay the same? And if they stay the same, is that okay? Is that acceptable? Will I enjoy that? Will that lead to my happiness? When you look into the future and understand where it's going to lead, then you come back to now and empower yourself to make decisions that will start changing things. They may be hard decisions. They may be easy decisions, but they're empowering decisions that will get you and everyone else involved on the right track. If it's a hard decision and you have to split ways with a person, place, or situation in your life, but that is what helps you and others start healing right away, then it's a consideration. It's something to visualize happening. For example, play out the scenario. So just play out the scenario. In 1 year, if I made this decision in 1 month, what will this look like in 1 year? If I made this hard decision in a month, what will it look like in 5 years, in 10 years, and so on? Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness. And the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. Just because a decision could cause you pain now doesn't mean it's going to still be painful later. It just means there's going to be an initial blow, and then the pieces will fall and the healing will begin. All right, Asha joins us once a week to tell us about Legal Shield. She is an independent associate for basically a service that gives you legal advice for $20 a month. I mean, think about that for a second. If you need a lawyer for anything, just to call a lawyer up, they're going to start charging you for their time. And their time is worth a lot more than mine, that's for sure, and probably a lot more than yours if you're not already someone in the field of medicine or law, because they charge hundreds of dollars an hour. Now, I'm not saying that's unfair. I'm saying that a lot of people can't afford that, which is why Asha loves Legal Shield, which is why she became an independent associate, and she's been using them for 8 years. So she loves promoting them, talking about them, and telling you about them, and also answering your questions about them. So what I want you to do is consider giving Asha a call at 678-355-8777 and ask her a question or two about if this service is right for you. She's at getoutofthemess.com, and she'll let you know if this is going to work for you. You know, I usually have Asha on to talk on her own behalf, but I wanted to tell my own story today. It's not a huge revealing story of any means, but it is a reason that I will be using the service very shortly. That's because a publisher came to me with a book offer, and they said, hey, we'd like to know if you'd be interested in writing a book. And I said, well, I write all the time. I talk all the time. Sure, I would love if somebody offered to publish and edit and take care of all the logistics of publishing a book, for sure. Plus, having a hard copy of a book sounds more appealing than a couple ebooks that I have on my website now. So, I was telling Asha about it, and she said, okay, you need to have an attorney look over that contract. I said, oh, that's a good idea. You're right. But, they do this all the time. I'm sure it's going to be fine. And she goes, you never know. You never know what they're going to stick in there, what kind of disclaimer. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. I have Legal Shield, so I'm going to get an attorney to look it over. And what I realized was, wait a minute, why wouldn't I do that anyway? I have the service. I can just call them up for free to check over my contract. They do that for free. They just look at your contract and tell you what's going to happen if you sign it. And that made perfect sense to me. I was like, of course I'm going to use them. I don't even realize how many things I can use them for until something like this comes up. So one of the questions that came up was, can I also create an audiobook? I'm a broadcaster, and I can take the content that I write and turn it into an audiobook. And, is that part of the contract? And so that's what I want to find out. What if they lock me out of creating my own audiobook from my own content? That's important to know. So I'm looking forward to doing this process and actually creating a hard copy, a physical book that I can share with the world. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them a call and send them a copy of the contract and see where it takes me. Thank you, Asha, for that advice. Thank you to your service at getoutofthemess.com. And I recommend you call Asha right now and ask her if you can apply it to your situation. She can be reached at 678-355-8777. All right, this next segment is where I read a listener email on the air and do my best to help them through a challenge they're having. Here's this week's letter. Hi, Paul. I've been listening to your podcast for some time now, and I really enjoy them. You definitely do provide a different perspective and insight into things. I wanted to request a topic for an upcoming episode. It's a complex topic that many coaches have not really talked about. When you feel like you don't deserve to be happy. To be more specific, the reason why I'm requesting such a topic is because of my own situation that gets me feeling like that sometimes. I grew up in a way where I was expected to sacrifice my happiness for my sisters and parents. And my past consists of me suppressing my thoughts a lot in fear of ridicule and verbal abuse. I did put up with a lot of humiliation and degradation. My sisters and their husbands have all ridiculed and made jokes about me at one point. And because I didn't stand up for myself, everyone thought I was a pushover and didn't really have any respect for me. I've now distanced myself from my family and I've built my boundaries. I've learned to say no and I put myself first. But every now and then, when my family gets together, I get very anxious. And the longer I stay with them, the more I start feeling shame, low self-esteem, and thoughts that I don't deserve to be happy. My question to you is, how can I get out of this limbo? And talking about my feelings to them is not possible, as that would make me look emotional to them. Thank you. Pretend name, Wanda. Okay, Wanda, thank you so much for writing that, and that's a hard place to be. When you grew up in a family that put you through that, and you developed all these fears and beliefs about the world, and you took them with you after you moved away from your family. You took them with you into your adult life, and you've built boundaries in all these other areas of your life, and you're actually honoring yourself in many other areas, except when you're with family. That's the hardest part. In fact, That's one of the biggest steps in personal growth, is that when you go through all these stages of evolution and personal development, and you test these improvements in yourself in all these situations, in work and intimate relationships and friendships, and when you're at the store, when you're at the DMV, when you test all of these things in all these situations, you keep passing these tests. And when you don't pass, you work on yourself and you get better. But then there's family. Now you have to be someone they never knew. Now you have to be someone that grew up, someone that evolved, someone that got smarter, got stronger, got more empowered, someone they don't know. But who do you become around family? This is something that I had to work on in myself. You know, my mom, fortunately, always supported my growth. And every time we talked, she would be like, wow, you're so smart. You seem to know things. And she would support it. I don't know if I was smart, but I did work on myself a lot. And I would tell her what I worked on and how I got through it. And she'd be like, wow. And she'd be proud of me. So I had that kind of support from my mom. However, I didn't necessarily have that kind of support from my stepfather and also one other family member. Now, with my stepfather, you know, I think he expected me to be subservient and submissive, as I always was growing up. And then after I moved away, I still had those feelings like, uh-oh, if he ever calls, I will talk to him, and I won't make waves, and I won't really honor myself. I just want to make sure that he stays happy and I don't upset him at all. Because that's how I've always done it. That's what's always worked for me. And this is what happens in family. We know what works around them. We know what behavior causes what. But what we don't know is what response they would have to different behavior. We only assume what they would do. We only assume that they would react negatively. And a lot of the times it's true. A lot of the times when you're going to honor yourself like you do in every other situation outside of family, they may and probably will respond negatively because they know who you always were. They know who you were and they apply that to who you are today. So what do you do? How do you get beyond that? You know, like I said, I had to deal with this myself in at least 2 or 3 situations where a true test of my personal growth and development took place. One of them was after my stepfather left my mom. He was gone for a good almost year, I think. And I was over at my mom's house and he knocked on the door. And I often wondered who I would be when I saw him again. I often wondered if I would be the person that would honor my boundaries and be this new person that I claim to be. And so he knocked on the door. I didn't know it was him. And I opened it and I was like, oh, in my head, I was like, oh, shoot. And he goes, hey. And I was like, hi. And he said, I'm here to see the dog. And I'm like, in my head going, no, you're not. You're here to see the person that you've been abusing for the last 40 years, my mom. And I'm thinking, who am I going to be? Am I going to be this person that submits to him and is afraid of him? Or am I going to be someone else? Am I going to be this new person that I claim to be? And I said, well, and this was the moment of decision. This was me going, oh my God, I'm afraid. I don't know if I can be this new person. But guess who stepped in at the last minute? The new person, me. I stepped in at the last minute, the me who I am today, and said, you know, Mom doesn't want to see you. And he's like, oh, no, I'm here to see the dog, which was a lie. It was just manipulation to get in the house. And I was like, no, you're not welcome here. And he goes, oh, okay. And he shrugged his shoulders and he walked away. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? That wasn't what I expected. My thoughts were going all over the place before I said that. I figured I'd say that, and then he would probably get into an argument. Like, well, what do you mean? And, I had all these visions, these horror fantasies that came up of what was going to happen when I said it. And all he did was shrug his shoulders and said, okay, and went away. And that was it. And that was the last time I saw him. And I was really proud of myself. I was still kind of shaking mentally, going, whoa, what just happened? That was the first time I ever stood up to him. The first time ever. Yet I did it. And that giant hurdle opened the floodgates to any other future time that it ever happened. That means that I was able to get beyond my self-perceived limitation of what I was going to do when that particular family member approached me and put me into a position where I either had to compromise myself or be myself. And this is what I'm saying to you. When you're in this position, you can either compromise yourself or be yourself. Because you know who you are when you're not around family. Why does that change? Well, I know why it changes. You probably know why it changes too. Because you're afraid of the consequences of being yourself. So that situation happened to me, and another situation followed that up, because this is what happens when we're into personal growth and development. When we improve ourselves, we are going to be tested. And whether you like that word or not, it's just true. We're going to get the challenge. The challenge is going to arrive, and we're going to get tested. And we're going to be tested on the exact thing that we improved upon. And, whether these are placed before us divinely or not doesn't matter. What matters is it's going to happen. Because it's happened in the past. We've just never given ourselves the opportunity to beat the challenge. We just submitted to the challenge and okay, you win. And then we improved. And now we're, quote, better person. Now we're a, quote, smarter person. Now we are empowered. And now we can face those challenges because we've processed it and released it and gotten through things. And then someone shows up at the door, or someone calls, or a situation happens, and now you're in the midst of it, and now you get a chance to be who you are. But you digress. Something happens in your mind where you go, oh, this person's never seen me like that, and I've always feared being that way because of the consequences. The second thing that happened to me was one of my family members asked to borrow money. And when it's a one-time thing, it's not a big deal. When it's a constant thing, then you start to go, this isn't right. So, my father used to ask for money all the time. And one night, and he was living in a different state at the time, and I was living with my first long-term girlfriend. And one night he called, and everything was fine. We were chatting, and I get the feeling, and I'm sure you know this feeling, that our conversation was leading somewhere. It was leading to the, hey, can I borrow $20 question. I knew it. I just knew it because the conversation wasn't deep enough. It just didn't feel like a real conversation. It just felt like chit chat until I can get to the, all right, I've placated him and now he knows that I'm connecting with him. And hey, can I borrow $20? And it's like, oh, really? Can we have one phone call where you don't ask for money? But at the time, I was very submissive to my dad, and I would always go, okay, I'll send it to you. But this one night, and I don't know if it was my girlfriend giving me the look or whatever when I was on the phone, but he asked for money, and I was like, and there's that, all the gears churning in my head going, I could be the person that I am in front of other people, or I can be the person I always was in front of my dad. What am I going to choose? And this is one of those moments where you either jump off the cliff or you stay in your comfort zone. And if you jump off the cliff, you're going into the unknown. You're going into an abyss of possibilities of what could happen. And then your head fills with all these stories. What if he gets mad at me? What if he never wants to talk to me again? What if he tells the family I'm bad? All these stories come up. And so for me, all these stories did come up. I was in this very moment once again. And I said, no, I don't want to lend you any more money. And then he said, oh, okay, yeah, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. Yeah, no problem. And that was it. And our conversation ended soon after that. And guess what? I never heard from him again. Not for another 10 years. In fact, I purposefully did not call him for years, just like he purposefully did not call me. It wasn't like a huge bit of tension. It was just like the needs that I was fulfilling for him were no longer being fulfilled. I don't know if he actually did enjoy talking with me or not, or if it was all a means to an end to get money from me. Either way, it doesn't matter, because 10 years later, and I've told this on the show before, we reconnected right before his death, and I made peace with him. And it all worked out. I missed 10 years, but what did I miss, really? Did I miss more tense moments of him finally leading to asking me for money, or what? So I don't know. But I do know that, like I said before, I believe that everything happens for a reason, that it was the right time to reconnect with him. And the subject of money didn't come up because now he was in the hospital and, it was hard and I had to go through it. But I was glad that things worked out the way they did. It just, the way it was supposed to happen is the way it was supposed to happen. So this is where I'm leading with all this, is that when you're afraid of the consequences of being the new person, the new and improved and amazing person that you are, when you're afraid of the consequences, you have a choice to jump off the cliff and build your wings as you go, or stay where you are and let people treat you the way they have always treated you. Now you may say, I know that's a choice, but I always stay where I'm at. I always stay in the rut of being walked all over. I always stay in the rut of not honoring my personal boundaries. Now, the only thing I can say about this has to do with an analogy that I've used a few times on this show, and that is seeing yourself as a child about to get abducted. Now, this is a weird analogy. I use it in coaching sometimes. But if you saw yourself as a child, and you're standing behind yourself like 20 or 30 feet away, and a van pulled up, and the side door opened, and you can see this child looking in going, oh, I wonder what's in this van. And they're motioning for the child to come in. And the child's hesitant, but you can see that one of the people in the van starts to reach out for the child. Knowing that child is you, what do? Do you run over, grab that child and run to safety? Or do you just watch it unfold? You're going to run to the child. You're going to save the child. That's what you're going to do. Even if you think you wouldn't, even if you don't think you have the guts, when you're really in that situation, that's what you're going to do. Knowing that it's you, especially, that's what you're going to do. This is called self-compassion. This is called self-love. This is being compassionate towards yourself before anyone else. You run over, you grab that child, and you run like hell. You get the license plate number, you call the police, you get them caught, and you saved your child. You saved yourself. Now, what's this analogy have to do with situations that I'm talking about with family? And coincidentally, I just talked about this with one of my coaching clients. When you're in a situation with family where you become a fearful child full of insecurities, the same person that you might have been when you were younger, that child, when you become that in front of them, the anxiety starts to come up, and like you said, the shame starts to come up, or whatever comes up for you. When that happens, you need to step in. You are the adult in you. Does that make sense? You, the person, the new and improved person that you are, the one that grew up and learned about yourself, you step in and you save that fearful child. Because when you step in and go, I got this. Don't worry. I will take care of you. Talking to yourself, talking to that little one that you're there to protect. Nothing gets in your way. And if you have real kids, you can relate to this. Because if your real kid was in a burning building, I guarantee you're going to risk getting burned to save him or her. I guarantee it. You treat yourself as that scared, worried child that doesn't know what to do, because that's who you become around family. You don't know any other way to be around family, so you become how they've always treated you. So what do? You step in. You run that 20 or 30 feet and grab that child, protecting that child. You step in as the person you are now and let the chips fall where they may. Because those people in the van, they might get out of the van. They might run after you. They may shoot at you. There may be all kinds of dangerous consequences that will happen when you step in to protect that child. But it doesn't matter, because what happens is fight or flight kicks in. Fight or flight, or some people call it freeze too. Fight, flight, or freeze. What do? Your child's in danger. You fight for it. You save the child. You run with the child. You do it all. You step in and save. That's what you do. That's what I had to do. When my stepfather knocked on the door, my child was right there, ready to respond from the child's perspective. But my new and improved self said, what would I do? Well, what I would do, this new and improved me, is the following. And I swallowed, and I stepped off the cliff, and I said what I said. And I have not talked with him since. But who was I at the end of that moment? Who was I? I was proud of me. I was proud of who I was, who I became in that moment, because I was the child, but I became the adult. I became the protector of me. This is hard. It's very hard. It's a leap of faith. And there will be consequences when you do it. But I like to look at the long-term effect of not stepping in as this new and improved me. Look at the long-term effect of not being this new you. And accept the consequences, no matter what. Now, there are situations where you might have to compromise yourself so that you don't end up with consequences that you don't want. I had a listener write to me recently that said, if I honor my boundaries and get this person out of my life, she said I'll never see her kids again. And I was like, wow, that is manipulation to the fullest. And what do you do with that? And I went in a slightly different direction with her because she wanted to see those kids again. So, if you get some sort of threat like that, it might change the situation, I realize. But most of the time, what are you really going to gain and what are you really going to lose? All right, if you stand up to your mom or your sisters, are they never going to talk to you again? Is that it? Is that the end of the relationship? And would that be as bad as you think? Are they going to turn the family against you? And if they did, doesn't that kind of make you rethink who really loves and supports you? I mean, think about this. When family loves and supports you, they support your happiness. They want you to be happy. So if they're doing things that purposely make you unhappy or shame you or guilt you, that's not supporting and loving. That's just mean. They may not know they're consciously doing it, or they might, but it's just not nice. So do you want to continue to be treated that way? And if you lost the people in your life that treated you that way, would your life be better? If you stepped in as the new and improved you and said, when you say that, it hurts me. That's disrespectful. And you could even follow it up saying, you know what? I love you and I want you to be happy and I support your decisions, even if I disagree with them. Can you do the same for me? And if they respond, well, you're making bad decisions and you need to do this and you need to do that. Otherwise, you're just a bad mom or a bad person or whatever. Then you ask them, do you say that just to be mean? Do you really support my happiness? Of course I support your happiness, they might say. And this is what you should do to be happy. And then you can follow up with the question, do you support my path to happiness, even if it doesn't agree with yours? You know, you're going to get different answers for all these things, and you'll probably create some tension in those moments. And it might be hard. It will be hard. I'm not going to get anywhere around that. It will be hard. But this is where you bite the bullet. You take the leap of faith and you do the first right thing for you. Stand up for you. Step in as the new and improved you. Protect yourself. Protect that child that's about to face danger, because that's what's happening. Your child is facing danger, and you have an opportunity to be that little child or be the new and improved you. This kind of evolution of self is not easy, and it's not supposed to be, because when you break through this barrier, you become a whole different person. I guarantee it. But it wasn't designed to be easy. It is a leap, because what happens is you take the leap, it's huge, it might be painful, but it generates empowerment. From that point on, you will feel more power, because people are finally going to treat you the way you ask to be treated, the way you deserve to be treated. And you're gonna piss people off. I hate to say it. You're going to piss people off that don't want you to grow, that don't want you to learn more about yourself and improve and get better, because they want you to stay where you are. Not everyone, but some people want you to stay where you are so that they don't have to change. You get that? Some people don't want to change. And if you change, then they have to deal with the new you, and now they're suddenly having to face their own problems because it was so much easier when you've reacted to their dysfunction. And it was so much easier for you to be dysfunctional in reaction to their dysfunctional behavior, their unhealthy behavior. So it comes back to you. Someone has to take the first step. Someone has to jump off the cliff. Figuratively, metaphorically, of course. Someone has to bite the bullet, metaphorically, of course, and stand up for yourself. Be that person that you are with everyone else, with family, and just roll with it. Go with it. Because once you do this, because family's the hardest part of personal growth, once you do this, a whole new world awaits. And then the sky's the limit. You'll reach a new pinnacle of growth. And it will feel pretty damn good. Yes, it's going to hurt. Some people are not going to talk to you anymore. Some people are going to continue trying to put you down because of where they are in their own personal growth, if any. But that's okay, because you honored yourself. And those who really love and support you will honor you, honoring you. I wish you the best. All right, one of the things I want to talk about before we talk about my coaching services is something from the last segment that Wanda said, which is, what do you do when you don't feel like you deserve happiness? Now, that's a very loaded question, because it could mean a number of things. When you feel like you don't deserve happiness, that usually means it was drilled into you. And the letter writer, Wanda, that wrote in the last segment, it sounded like that's exactly what happened to her. It was drilled into her. You don't deserve happiness, and we're going to neglect you and verbally abuse you and emotionally abuse you just to show that every time you start to get happy, you won't be happy anymore. That's just programming. Because we all want to feel some level of peace and satisfaction in our lives. It doesn't mean that we're going to be blissfully happy, but it can mean that we enjoy being alive. We enjoy living and going through each day and doing different things. It doesn't mean we're going to enjoy every single moment of everything that happens. But if your general feeling is unhappy more than it's happy, then systematically removing things that make you unhappy changes that. It does. Because there's a lot of things in your life that, especially for Wanda, if you have not been honoring your personal boundaries in family, as you do that, systematically, it's going to happen. Happiness just arrives. Because in my book, Clear the Path to Happiness, that's exactly what I talk about. I say, when you clear the obstacles that make you unhappy, when you take those out of the path, happiness just arrives. It's there. Happiness isn't something you seek or try to attain. It just appears when you start filtering those things out of your life. And one of your challenges, Wanda, was being this new and improved, evolved self in front of family. And I guarantee you do it once. It's going to be hard as hell, but you do it once, you get past that hurdle, and it allows you to do it again and again until the real you can be expressed. The real, authentic, genuine you can be in the world. And when that is being shown to the world, when you are acting from that place, happiness comes. I know it's a hard path, but I know you can do it. And if you can't, well, that's what I'm about to talk about, because I am a personal empowerment coach. All right, one of the things I do every week is talk with coaching clients. These are the people that reach out to me and actually invest in coaching with me. That's my personal one-on-one interaction with them, sometimes on the phone, sometimes through Skype or another video service. And what I like to do when someone reaches out to me, I have clients anywhere from Guatemala to Canada to Spain, and of course in the US. So I really love that technology definitely helps us connect in so many ways, because what would happen? I mean, they could listen to my podcast and probably get some of the answers they need, but what about specific things that they are dealing with that they just haven't heard the exact thing they need to get over a challenge? And that's where coaching with me comes in. So if you're interested in getting over a challenge in your life and you want to come to a place of empowerment, consider coaching with me. Go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on Coach with Paul. We can chat one-on-one and get you to a place where you start making decisions that are right for you. It's sort of like what I just talked about in the last segment, where you're in front of family and now you have a choice to make. Do I act the same way I did when I was a kid, or do I step in as my new and improved self and honor my boundaries and be in alignment with my values? Who do you become around certain people? This is an important question, because I am fully on board with being as authentic as you can be. I mean, you've heard me on this show. I'm quite revealing and vulnerable with you. I just let it out. And, you know, this is something I don't share much, but when I first started this show, I wasn't immediately comfortable. Maybe after a few months, I realized, you know, I'm interviewing, this is when I had an interview show. I'm interviewing people and they seem to be giving me a lot of great information, but am I really learning anything for myself? Am I going to continue learning by doing this show? Or is this just going to be one of those, I come on the air, I interview someone, and then I put it out there and I hope people listen? And I didn't want it to be that. I wanted to learn as I went and get better and better at what I did. But what I didn't know is that I would also learn from a personal growth perspective. I would also learn that I had some psychological things I had to deal with that I hadn't addressed yet. And one of those things was really coming into my authenticity, really being vulnerable with people. I'm putting myself out there to quite literally be judged. Like right now, I'm telling you things that I could be judged for, and I probably will be judged for. I realize that when I speak from a vulnerable place, I will be judged. For example, I got a letter not too long ago that was calling me out, that I met my girlfriend too soon after my divorce, and that I should really take some time to myself and, heal and get over this before I meet someone else. And she said some pretty tough, in-your-face things to me that I had to digest. Now, she got some of her facts incorrect. She thought that once I got divorced, I sought someone else out, and I had an episode where I addressed that. But, I decided to just be vulnerable on the air and read her letter in entirety and just say, you know what, you're right about some things and you're not right about other things. But I agree, I probably still do have healing to go through. I never want to admit that I'm done, that I'm healed, that everything is great with me. I still have issues. I still have a few triggers that come up for me. I just experienced one last night. I just experienced when someone's name was mentioned, I got this feeling inside of me. And I go, why do I get this feeling? Why do I get triggered when I hear that guy's name? And so I explore that, yet I'm still not quite over it. So I know that I have stuff to work on in myself. But I tell you that because it's part of my healing process. It is healing to come on here in front of the entire world and say, I get triggered. I have an emotional trigger that I'm still working on, that I don't feel good when it happens. And I know that I need to process it and figure it out. So I did some work on myself last night. It really did help because I do a drill down process that really helps me dive into the root of why I don't feel so well. It's not always easy working on myself, which is nice that I have other friends and coaches that I can communicate with and try to dig into that too. But it is really helpful to be able to have these tools. And if you don't, then you reach out to someone like me and get some coaching, or you dive into books or listen to podcasts or whatever you can do to get through some of the challenges that you get through. But I have challenges too, and I will admit those challenges while I'm in a coaching session, while I'm on the air, or in front of complete strangers that I just met. But why? Why do I do that? Why would I just reveal all? If they ask a question, I'll just give them an honest answer and say, oh yeah, I was in this situation and this is what happened. And they'll go, wow, you told me that? You don't even know me. That's because I know that it's part of my healing process. And if I don't talk about it, then I don't have an opportunity to process it and release it. And some of the things that I talk about, if they still have a negative impact on me, I express it. And that's one of the things I teach on this show is honest expression of self, being authentic, even at the risk that someone may judge you, even at the risk that someone may not like you anymore. Because you're being honest. You're being yourself. It's like what I tell people when they go on a job interview. I had someone reach out to me recently that said, I'm going on a job interview. Do you have any tips? And, I have all kinds of tips. What's the problem? You're going to go on a job interview. And, she was nervous. And I was like, the last time I went on a job interview many years ago, I decided that the first thing I was going to do is listen to some music that really calms me. So I put in some music that really did calm me and it helped. But then, this nervousness kicks in, I'm going to be in front of these people and I really want this job. And I know I'll get judged because they're judging everyone that comes in there. And if I don't get the job, it's not going to be good. So you have all these thoughts and feelings that come up. And I decided that, you know what? I don't care if I get this job. And I don't care if they judge me. I just had this attitude develop suddenly. If this job doesn't come through, I'll just get the next one. Or if that one doesn't pull through, it opens the door for the next one. So I decided to let go of needing this job. Even though I really needed a job, did I really need this job? I wanted it, But I decided, you know what? I'm going to let it go. And what that did was free me from impressing them. It freed me from impressing anyone with my skills, my history, my experience, my talent. And once I felt free of that, I was a lot less nervous. And then I decided as well that I was just going to be myself as the person I usually am around close friends. And that was the icing on the cake, because now I'm no longer nervous about impressing someone, but I'm also not nervous at all because now I feel like I'm around friends. And what happens when you put yourself in that position is that you treat them like they're your friends. And you're not there to lie to them and say, well, yes, I know that skill. Instead, you're saying, oh, I don't know that skill at all. And, I, of course, would learn it because I'd love to get the job. But, I don't know that at all. In fact, I've never even heard of it until now. I mean, you can just be honest, and it feels good because you don't have to cover up for exaggerations. You don't have to cover up for lies or anything like that. The last time I did that in a job interview, I went home thinking, well, I may or may not have the job. I probably don't, because they asked me a lot of questions that I said no to. They said, do you know how to do this? I was like, oh, no. Do you know how to do that? No, I never heard of that. And I was thinking, well, there goes my chances. But that's okay. Didn't need it. I already put myself in a space of that's all right. And a couple days later, I got the call and they said, well, it was between you and someone else. And I was like, okay. And they said, we picked you. And I was like, really? And then they said something that surprised me, which is the other guy was much more qualified. He had all the qualifications that we needed. And I was like, why did you hire me? You know what they said? Because we liked you. And that's all it took. We're all teachable. But can you be authentic enough to give someone the chance to like the real you? And that's what got me the job. And I did learn some new skills on that job, and I did perform admirably, if I may say so myself. And I enjoyed the job while I had it. So I gave that advice to someone who reached out to me, and she was like, that's a great idea. Okay, I'll do that. She let go of her attachment to getting the job, and she just decided that, hey, these are just friends that I haven't seen in a while, even though she didn't know them. And she treated it like that. And boy, did I get a message that was so wonderful from her saying, I got the job. So it was very exciting to see that, all because she decided to act authentically and be herself. And that's what we really want from people anyway. If we're going to work with them side by side for months or years, then we want someone we like. So there's my coaching tip for this section, because we're not going to get into what's in the box, but I'll just put it into my little coaching advertisement here for my coaching services and how I began really being authentic in the world, and how I like to teach that authenticity to you, and how I can get you to a place of strengthening your personal boundaries and becoming empowered so that you can make the right decisions for you. Thank you for joining me today. It was great connecting with you, and I look forward to talking with you again next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I want to thank Asha, who didn't make an appearance today, but she is still there to help you. Go to getoutofthemess.com if you want to find out about legal advice, legal insurance that costs you only like $20 a month. I mean, we're talking that you can call an attorney and either spend hundreds on your own or spend $20 a month with Get Out of the Mess. So call Asha today at 678-355-8777 and see if this service is right for you. In the U.S. or Canada only. Sorry, the rest of the world, but that's just the way it is. If you're in the U.S. or Canada, give her a call today. I want to thank everyone who has purchased a book or worksheet. You may or may not know that I have 2 books and 2 worksheets on the site. I am working on more in the background. I just haven't had time to release them. But if you've purchased that for any kind of deeper learning that you've wanted to dive into yourself even more, that's where you want to go. Just go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on Deeper Learning. And if you've used the Amazon link to shop as you normally would, it gives us pennies for every dollar you spend there. So your contributions and shopping habits are making a difference. So thank you. And thank you to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. In closing, I just want to mention real quick about something that we talked about earlier, which is who you become around family. I think one of the hardest steps that I've taken on my personal growth journey is honoring myself around people I love. And because I probably defined love from a fearful place. I mean, if I really think about it right now, this is my raw thought process going on. I was probably in love or loving and fearful at the same time. Because I remember wanting the person that I was with, let's say in my intimate relationship, wanting that person, loving them, and not wanting them to leave. So in order to make sure that they don't leave, I won't honor my boundaries. That's unhealthy. It's so unhealthy because it deteriorates the relationship. And then when it came to family, I didn't want my family to be mad at me or shut me out. So I would not honor my boundaries around them. And some of my fears that came up when it came time to make the decision to honor my boundaries or not weren't even justified. They were just fantasies that I dreamed up at the moment, thinking about what might happen if I were to say something or do something that I really wanted to say or do. And then when I took the step forward and took that leap of faith and jumped off the cliff and built my wings on the way down, it turned out that I did fly okay. It turned out that, yes, some people didn't like the new me. They did not like the fact that I am now honoring myself and they couldn't walk all over me anymore. Ouch. Did I really have these people in my life, and did I really want to keep them in my life? Do you want people that walk on you? The answer is no. In case you didn't know, the answer is no. You don't want people that walk on you. You don't want people that take advantage of you. You want more harmony, at least I do. You want more peace. You want more balance and synergy. All the big level words that we always hear personal growth gurus talk about. But how do you get it? What are the steps? And this is the hardest part for people to accept. The first step is honoring yourself. Because how can you be synergized with someone? How can you be in harmony or in balance with someone when you're not authentic? When you don't step in as the new and improved you? How can you find balance in your life if they don't even know who they're dealing with? You'll only get treated as you present yourself. You will always attract the level of dysfunction that you're already at. So if you're not authentic, if you're not being your true self in almost every situation, unless it's dangerous and you might get physically harmed in some way, if you're not being the real you, then you'll be treated as the you that you present. And that treatment is a path to dysfunction. It's a path to a dysfunctional relationship. And yes, being the real you means that some people won't like it. Some people will not want anything to do with you after that. And that's when you ask yourself, do I need this person in my life? Someone who doesn't support me being me. Someone who doesn't honor me honoring myself. Someone who doesn't support my decision to be happy. If you have people in your life that are not honoring your path to happiness, even if it doesn't include them, then their presence in your life probably needs to be questioned, or at least talked about. But if it's not mentioned at all, and you stay the fearful person that you once were as a kid, or you've developed fears that just because you're afraid of the consequences, you don't want to be yourself? Is that the kind of situation that you want to stay in? Again, the answer is no. I won't allow you to fill in the blanks because I'm going to tell you the answer is no. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be free of the dysfunction that people are trying to bring into your life. And especially if you are responding to the world from that same child that your family always knew you to be, it's time to step into your power and be firm in your decisions and actions so that you can create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure, and above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing.